Hello, everyone. Welcome to Molehill Mountain episode. Wait, is it 388 or 9? 389. I did not update my notes. 9. There we go. 389. Hope you're well. So, if you saw doing pretty well early this year on the videos I wanted to get out. My sister and I got our gift exchange video done and published. A lot of years it takes us well into January to get our gifts to each other, but we managed to actually get it in before the end of the year, so that's pretty good. Just got my previous year's Patreon expenditures video done, so that's nice. We still have to do the top 3 movie or TV things we saw in 2024. We'll try to do that later in this month, so probably not going to see that till February. So, knowing that, so if you saw the Patreon video, you'll know that I now am the proud owner of a PS5 Pro even. And I've known I was going to have to get a PS5 at some point because there are starting to release games that I want to play that I need a current gen console to play. Monster Hunter Wilds ain't on the PS4. It is on the PC, but I don't really want to play it on the PC. So, got a PS4 or 5, but knowing I was going to get a PS5, I knew I was going to have to get a new TV because my TV was over 12 years old. All 180 of its Ps were very, very nice, but needed a 4K. There's very little point in getting like a 4K game console if your TV doesn't display 4K or HDR or any of that fun stuff. So I now have, so I've been, combination of saving up for this and Patreon monies, bought a new TV. It's very nice. And now I've actually, although I was kind of irritated because out of the box, the television has like the ugliest, worst video settings you could possibly enable. The first thing I watched on this TV was the Beetlejuice sequel, and I went, "Oh my god, it looks absolutely terrible." So I had to spend like an hour going through all the menus and turning off all the motion smoothing crap, you know. That just I'm sitting there thinking, "Oh my god, how many people throughout the country, nay, the world, have their TVs set to make their movies look terrible?" And sitting there going, it's like, I guess that's just what 4K looks like. I guess that's just what a good image is. No, no, it's not. So, 4K TV, 4K console, which means I needed a 4K switcher box and 4K cables and a 4K capture card so that I can actually stream this crap. Not just stream it, but I run all the consoles run through the capture card in my computer because I don't want to keep changing the cables on the back to run directly into the TV. Which means I do need my computer on to play video games, but computer's on if I'm up, so that's how it works. It's fine. So, I mentioned all this during my Patreon video, but what I didn't mention, because it didn't happen until after I'd finished recording, was the PS5 Pro, when I put it through the new 4K capture card I got, did not display properly on my TV. The signal would go in and out, or it would display all rainbow corrupty. Very, very, very disheartening. Luckily, I'm a QA guy, so I have the mindset to isolate things and try them in sequence to narrow down where the problem lie. And the problem was the HDMI switcher. I don't know why, but for whatever reason, the 4K capture card would not accept a signal from the PS5 Pro, and only that specific console, if it was running through the HDMI switcher. It ran fine. I could plug the PS5 Pro directly into my TV. It worked fine. I could plug the PS5 Pro into, feed it through the HDMI switcher and directly into the TV. It worked fine. I could plug the PS5 Pro directly into the capture card and into the TV, and it worked fine. It only caused problems when it's running through the HDMI switcher. But interestingly, if I put the PS5 Pro through the switcher and into my old 1080p capture card, it worked. I mean, it only passed through a 1080p signal, but it worked fine. No idea. But, so I bought a new HDMI switcher, which was $30 more expensive, but I really wanted one with at least 5 inputs. So I bought a new switcher and it works. So, yay. I sure done did spend a lot of money, but I've got new toys now, and new toys make me happy. Uh, and I'll share some of this stuff with y'all at various points. I'm currently playing Ghost of Tsushima. And it's almost exactly like Horizon Zero Dawn. So much so that I feel like I I feel like it almost kind of rips off Horizon Zero Dawn. I like looked at the release dates. I'm like, Horizon came first, right? And yeah, Horizon came out like 2, maybe 3 years prior. So it feels pretty, just from a presentation and mechanics, not setting, but wow, is that game similar? And I liked Horizon Zero Dawn. So, but the thing that concerns me most is is when I finished Horizon Zero Dawn and I 100%ed the game, not trophies, but did everything you could do in the game and its DLC, I was done with Horizon. I was like, okay, I'm done. I enjoyed the game, but I have absolutely no interest in playing the sequel. And to this day, I've not played the sequel. Is Forbidden West even on the PS4? I'm not sure. I may not have been able to play the sequel because it may be exclusive to PS5. I'm not sure. But yeah, I've never had any desire to play Forbidden West. And again, I liked Horizon Zero Dawn, but there's so much of it, I was just like, I'm done. And I'm wondering if Ghost of Tsushima is going to be the same way for me. If once I get to the end of the game, I'm like, oh, that was great. I really enjoyed that, but man, I'm all Ghost of Tsushima'd out. I have no interest in playing Ghost of Yotei. I don't need to play it. Let me just double check again and make sure I do have this on public. Okay, I do. Just want to make sure because no one said anything yet. I can see my concurrent viewers switching between 1 and 2. I am streaming in I upped my output to 1080. So we'll see how that plays. I want to test it out on the podcast, and then I'll try it tomorrow with the Sunday stream and see if I can get away with streaming in HD. Not going to be streaming in 4K, even when I show off PS5, but want to at least see if I have the bandwidth and ability to stream in HD. And so far, it looks okay. So let me know on your end if everything's playing nicely. So, Ghost of Tsushima. Quite a fun game. One of the things I'm going to try to keep from burning out on the game is the game is broken up into 3 acts. You have Tsushima Island. That's the titular Tsushima of Ghost of Tsushima. It's the landmass that the titular ghost lives on. It's divided into 3 areas, the southern bit, the center bit, and the northern bit. Act 1 is in the southern bit, Act 2 is in the center bit, and Act 3 is in the northern bit. There's a DLC which came out a year later, which is another island off the east coast of the island, I think. Um, so my plan is I'm currently in the opening hours of Act 3. So my plan is to probably over the next week or so beat Act 3 and then take a break from the game, play Astrobot. And then when we take a break from Cold Steel at the beginning of February, which we may or may not do, I don't know, kind of depends on how I'm feeling. Um, we'll I usually do a different game for the first Sunday of each month. So I think I'll for the first Sunday of February, we'll take a break from Cold Steel, and I'll show off the DLC for Ghost of Tsushima. Hopefully that will help me not burn out on the game and be excited for the sequel. Ghost of Tsushima, it's interesting because I can't help compare it to Horizon Zero Dawn, because the way they play, the way they're structured, the way they're presented is very, very similar. Um, I like Ghost of Tsushima better, and so far at least. And I think it all comes down to the way the narrative is structured. Uh, Horizon Zero Dawn, really the only difference between the two is setting, right? Horizon Zero Dawn takes place in a post-apocalyptic Earth populated by robot dinosaurs, and Ghost of Tsushima takes place in like 13th century Japan with samurai and stuff like that. That's functionally about the only difference between the two. They play very, very similarly. And it's like, oh well, Andrew, you're just a weeb, right? You just like all the samurai and stuff. That's your bag. And it's like, yes, but on the Horizon hand, robot dinosaurs, samurai and robot dinosaurs. Honestly, that's kind of a wash because they're both really cool. Um, so I think the reason why I'm enjoying Ghost of Tsushima better, but Ghost of Tsushima more, is because I feel it structures its narrative in a much more coherent and enjoyable way. One of the possible drawbacks of Horizon Zero Dawn is the way it's presented is one large open world, and there's very little gating in that open world. You can, with some exceptions, go wherever the hell you want and experience the story broadly in almost any order. And that can be detrimental is a strong word, but it can lessen the impact of the narrative. And stories do not have to be told in strictly chronological order, of course, but there is an art to telling stories out of order. You can't just chop a story into bits, shuffle them cards, and deal them out and expect a coherent and satisfying story, which is kind of the way Tears of the Kingdom does it, right? Tears of the Kingdom, the story is told in like, I think 12 cutscenes, and these cutscenes are triggered when you collect the titular tears of the kingdom. And which cutscene you get depends on which tier you pick up off the ground. So most players are going to experience the story in a completely different order. And what can happen, as happened with me, is I ended up getting the cutscene that kind of reveals Zelda's fate in like the third tier that I picked up. And again, while you can tell stories out of order, the reveal of what Zelda's ultimate fate is works better towards, say, the closing of Act 2, not the middle of Act 1. Because, I'm picking up the tears. I'm like, okay, picking up the tear. Okay, pick up the third tear. I'm like, oh, that's what happened to Zelda? Oh, so that thing that I saw means X? Oh, okay. That's little early to learn that. Chaos says, that's something I hope Nintendo gets away from with the next Zelda game. Yeah. I really, honestly, I feel they should have cheated. Like, they didn't need to tell the story in chronological order, but they should have picked the most narratively satisfying order and just played the cutscenes in that order, regardless of which specific tier you picked up. Whichever tier you pick up, whichever the 12 or however many there are, it plays this cutscene first. That's cheating, but I think it would make for a better, more satisfying story. I mean, think of would The Sixth Sense be as effective if you learned the twist 30 minutes in? I'd argue no. And I had a similar problem with Horizon Zero Dawn because of the nigh unrestricted open nature of the game. I experienced the story in an order that I felt was not narratively satisfying. There wasn't a proper build to the ultimate reveal. And that's a shame. Didn't make me not like the game. It was just the reveals of the narrative just landed like a wet fart. It's just right because of where I happened to go in the landscape. Now, Ghost of Tsushima does something a little bit differently. As I mentioned, the island is broken up into 3 bits: north, center, and south, center, and north. So Act 1, Act 2, Act 3. You can't move on to Act 2 until you complete everything in Act 1. Act 1 is, I have to rescue my uncle who's being held prisoner in the castle on the bit that separates the southern bit of the island from the center bit. So you can't experience any of the story, any of Act 2 stuff, till you actually get there. But you can't actually move on and rescue your uncle until you do these three major things. And you can do those 3 things in any order, and it doesn't really matter which order you do it in. And of course, there's a bunch of other side quests and stuff you can do. But what that allows the game to do is make sure that the story is the order you experience the story is not fixed, but it's structured enough that the storytellers can curate a satisfying narrative with properly paced reveals. For example, there's a character that dies, at the end of Act 2 leading into Act 3, right? Which this character can't actually die until that point, which means that you have to experience the bits with that character leading up to their death so that you actually care when they die, so their death actually means something, so that your protagonist's reaction and all the other characters' reaction to this character's passing is earned, is justified, makes narrative sense, is emotionally satisfying in its payoff. If it were completely open, you might just run to that bit and this character dies and you've only seen like one scene with them and it's like, oh, that character died. I didn't know him anyway, right? So I think Ghost of Tsushima while it is more contained and more structured than Horizon Zero Dawn, each section of the island is still really large and littered with crap to do. So it still feels like open world, and in order to kick off the scenario that ends that act, you have to complete the side quests in a checklist. But you can do that checklist in any order. And then, of course, there's the dozens of side quests and other activities. So it's more restricted. It keeps that open world feeling, that go anywhere, do anything at any time in any order that you want, while keeping enough of a structure to help the narrative payoff. Now, that said, the game doesn't do it perfectly. I think it does a pretty good job with the main narrative through line, but most of the side quests, the side stories, are one and dones. They're just over really quick. Most of them are over so quick. It's like, meet someone in need, help them. They die anyway because everything sucks. It's like, oh, well, yeah. It's the 13th century. Things are hard. We're being invaded by a group of meanies. Things suck. But I didn't really get to know these people at all. You know, they're most of the non-critical side quests are so brief that they don't really have a chance to emotionally register with the little mini stories that they're trying to tell. And that's a shame. That's maybe something that they can work on for the sequel. Lindy Lee, hello! Chaos says, it's absolutely possible to do a linear story in a non-linear world. Look at GTA 5 and Red Dead Redemption. I've not played 2, but I played the first half of 1, and I would agree. I would agree with that. Yeah. I've not played GTA 5 though, so can't really say. Let me check something real quick. Is that working? Yeah. Yeah, that's good. Okay. Now, I will say one thing Horizon has over Tsushima: controls. Your protagonist in Ghost of Tsushima has a bunch of fun weapons that he can use. He's got kunai that he can chuck at people. He's got smoke bombs. Throw down the smoke bomb, poof, run away, ha ha ha, ninja. He's got black powder bombs. He's got sticky bombs. He's got 2 different types of poison blow darts. He's got 2 completely different bows. He's got a short bow and a long bow. He's got 4 different stances that he can take depending on what kind of enemy. He's got one stance for fighting sword-wielding enemies, one for fighting sword and shield-wielding enemies, one for lance enemies, and one for big brutes. Lots of different things to do. Aloy in Horizon Zero Dawn has a bunch of crap at her disposal, too. She's got her bow, she's got that tripwire thing, she's got like a bomb caster thingy. She's got a whole, it's been a while since I've played the game, but she has a cornucopia stuffed with fun tools to down giant robotic dinosaurs with. Smartly, Horizon Zero Dawn uses a weapon wheel. You hold a button, a wheel comes up, you push in the direction of the weapon that you want to equip, and you go about your day. Ghost of Tsushima does not do a weapon wheel, and I don't know why, because Ghost of Tsushima came out years after Horizon Zero Dawn, and Horizon Zero Dawn did not pioneer the weapon wheel. That thing's been around for a while. Ghost of Tsushima, the controls aren't bad. They're just weird. Well, the controls are fine. Like, just moving your character around feels fine, right? No problem there. It's just the way they've decided to organize the buttons you have to press in order to switch your stances and weapons and all that stuff is just kind of weird. I honestly think a big old weapon wheel would have gone a long way. Um, so, to toggle between the stances, you hold the right trigger, and then you use the face buttons to toggle between the different stances. To toggle between your two bows, your blow darts, and your throwing items, you hold down the left trigger and then use the plus pad to select which item you want. But there's two different kinds of throwing things. There's the throwing things that you hit the right button, the right bumper, and your character will just chuck out a kunai or a sticky bomb. But there's also things that he throws that you hold down the left trigger to target and then release to throw so that you can aim. So you have to hold down the left trigger and then push left to select the throwing items. But then while holding that down, you use the buttons on the right to select which item you're throwing when you hold down the left trigger. But then you hold down the right trigger and then you use the plus pad to pick the items that you throw but don't aim with, and you throw those by hitting the right bumper. I still can't get it right. I've put 50 hours into the game over the last several weeks, and I still have to think about it. Now, one thing it does well is when you hit either of them, the game slows down. It goes into like bullet time so that you can kind of think about what you're doing, and that's helpful. Because if it's like, oh, I need a smoke bomb. Okay, now let me think. A smoke bomb is the one where I just hit the button and he immediately throws it on the ground. So I need to hold the left trigger, hit left on the D-pad, and then hit the button corresponding with the smoke bomb, and then let go, and then hold the, it's like, oh my god. It's, whereas I could have just done the Horizon and every other game thing where you just use a damned weapon wheel. Like every other game. I mean, at least it's not something silly like, an entire linear list of things that you have to scroll from just one row, where you scroll from left to right through several dozen things in your inventory. Looking at you, Zelda. Literally the Echoes of Wisdom one I hear. I remember when I first saw the trailer for the marketing for Echoes of Wisdom before it came out. And I was like, ooh, neat idea. So she captures the soul of stuff and then she can use it in game, whether it's a bed or a rock or a monster or whatever. I wonder how they're going to do that. Because I think in the earliest marketing, they didn't actually like have the UI on the screen. And I'm like, I hope it isn't like scrolling through a linear list to pick the thing you want and putting it on one button. And every time you want to change it, you have to go back into the list and scroll it left to right, like you did in Tears of the Kingdom. Every time you wanted to try sticking something on the end of an arrow, you had to scroll through this linear list of like 6 dozen different items. No, that's from what I understand, that's exactly how that game works, which is why I wasn't in too much of a yank to actually play the game. It looks annoying to play. And I've heard kind of different reviews. I've heard reviews like, it's a lot of fun, I love it. And I've heard, it's fun, but oh my god, the interface. Actually selecting it. It's probably where all those bed-only speedruns and stuff come from. It's not the challenge, I just can't bother scrolling through the list all the time. Just pick a useful item and use that throughout the entire game. So, yeah, Ghost of Tsushima. Things I would like to see in a sequel. I would like a. I'd like them to redo the controls. Just guys, use a weapon wheel. Just use a weapon wheel. It's so much easier. I would also like them to refine the stealth mechanics because they work and they're fun, but they're not as involved and ninja cool as they could possibly be. They're a little simple. I need a bit more Tenchu in my Ghost of Tsushima. Otherwise, it's fun. I'm quite enjoying it. And it's one of those damn just one more thing kind of games. Because it's, 1 o'clock in the morning, you're sitting there going, it's like, okay, I'm just going to go to this point on the map, because it's one of those fog of war things. So it's like, all right, there's an empty space. I'm just going to ride up over here, see what's over there. I'm just going to do this one thing, then I'm going to go to bed. And then you ride over there and you're like, ooh, what's that over there? I'm just going to go check that out. And we'll go do that, and then we'll hit that, and we'll be done from that. Then you go over there, and that leads you to something else, and and you find something else on your way to that. It's like, all right, let me just pick up that thing. It's going to be real quick. And 3 hours have passed by the time you get to the one thing you were trying to do before turning in for the night. It's one of those games. And honestly, it's kind of nice to have one of those games. I enjoy that feeling, even though I do stay up too late playing these things sometimes. I think that's a sign of a fun game, or a game that manipulates and preys on people with particular compulsions. But no, I think it's a healthy. There's just lots of neat things to see and do. At least that's how it plays for me. So Ghost of Tsushima. I think it's I give it a thumbs up. Also, it's the first bit of media presentation I've seen that genuinely showed off HDR. Ghost of Tsushima is like 4 or 5 years old now, but it handles its lighting. It takes advantage of HDR to do its lighting really, really nicely. I'm like, oh, that's what high dynamic range as far as lighting and color does for a game. And what it does is it really makes you feel like you're staring directly into the sun. Because you're like standing in a wooden house with no electric lighting. You're just standing in the darkened room of a house with no electric lighting, and the sun is shining through the slatted windows, and it's just really bright, and it's a wonderful effect that pulls off the extraordinary contrast between dark inside, light outside, without searing your retinas. It looks really, really nice. So thumbs up there. All right. So I think first Sunday in February, first or second, depending on what's going on in Cold Steel, we'll take a break and from Cold Steel and play the DLC for Ghost of Tsushima. Also gives me a chance to test to make sure I can actually stream my PS5 stuff. Oh, one more thing on this subject. I wanted to be able to so I have my new television hooked up as a third monitor, or at least hooked up so I can use it for third monitor. I have it disabled right now, but so this will allow me to play PC games during the Extra Life charity event. So Kelly and I can sit on the couch and play the game on the television instead of like gathering around here, which I did for the Monster Hunter Wilds beta, which worked, but I think that's going to be nicer. Also, what that means is I'm able to watch movies from streaming services that don't have a smart TV app, like the Criterion Channel or Shudder. Now I can, instead of watching it on my whatever this is, 27-inch screen, I can watch it on my television. only in 1080p, but that's fine because Criterion Channel and Shudder don't stream in 4K anyway. So and it took me a while to remember that because I was like, oh, I need to buy another HDMI 2.1 cable for the television, and my graphics card has one HDMI and 3 display ports, so I need to get a display to HDMI converter, and blah 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 blah. And then I remembered, oh wait, no, I don't. None of these channels stream in 4K anyway, so I can just use my old HDMI cable. And I remembered that when I bought my graphics card, they packed in, for whatever reason, a display port to HDMI converter. So I'm like, do I still have that? And yeah, it was in all of my computer stuff. So I just plugged it in, and the one thing I had that took me a moment, like, oh shoot, something's not working, is I have to actually change the system sound to output to the television instead of my computer speakers. That's something I have to remember to flip back and forth, but other than that, I tested it, and seems to work fine, so that's nice. Hey, Chicago. So now let us talk about anime. Frieren, Frieren, the long-lived elf girl anime. I've been trying to watch this damn thing for like 2 years, and like I first tried it 2 years ago, and I got through about 3 episodes, and it wasn't really clicking with me. And then last year I watched another 3 episodes, and it's just not clicking with me. I watched the next 4 episodes this past week. Still not really clicking with me, and it's a shame because I know a lot of people really like this show, and there's a lot I like about the show. I like the premise, I like the setting, I like the ideas that are presented, but what's keeping me at arm's distance with this show is it's not that I don't like any of the characters, it's most all of the characters are so bored and uninvested in everything that as the viewer, I can't get invested myself. Frieren seems so disconnected, so uninterested in everything that I can't bring myself to care either. Even her protege, Fern, I think her name is, makes sense. She's essentially been raised by Frieren for most of her life, so it doesn't surprise me that she has the same affect, but it's not fun to watch. These two main characters don't really seem to have much interest or passion in anything, and they never seem to have to try to do anything. Like, the 4 episodes I just watched is a big arc about fighting demons, which is a threat that was just introduced. Unless I forgot about something, which is possible because I've been watching this very slowly over 2 years. The only thing we'd heard about demons up then is, like, once upon a time, Frieren and her 3 hero companions defeated the Demon Lord. That would tell me there are demons, and someone was lording over them, and I assume the Demon Lord was bad. But this arc of the show starts off with Frieren seeing, demon must kill. And it's like, where the hell did that come from? Like, I mean, I guess demons are the bad guys, but... And I like the mythology behind demonkind. I find that really interesting because it's different from how it's typically presented. And I enjoyed the various fights that they get into throughout this arc, because it's interesting in that fighting tournament anime kind of way. It's like, oh, how is our hero going to counter this seemingly insurmountable power? Well, through sheer wit and gumption, gosh darn it. And that's always a lot of fun. But damned it. Now, the kid with the axe, he actually shows a little bit of passion, but man, Frieren and Fern, they just... don't seem to care much or try, or it's, I don't know, it just, it, that show just keeps me at such an arm's distance, an arm's length, that it's really hard for me to get invested in the show and actually care where it's going. Because for me anyway, when the protagonist of the show doesn't care, boy, I have a tough time caring too. So it's frustrating because there's a lot I like about the show, but just the way the characters act is just, everyone is so flat. Everyone acts like me when I'm not performing to the camera. Just, are you having fun, Andrew? Yes. Really? Yeah. Because I can't tell. No, I'm having fun. Right? It's, that's, if I'm not actually conscious of what I'm doing and performing for, to an extent, for the for my audience, whether online or in person, my flat affect is really off-putting. And so it goes with characters and, you know drama. So I've been looking around at anime. Will I finish Frieren? I don't know. Maybe in another year I'll try another batch of episodes. I think there's only like 20 some, so I'm almost halfway through. I want to see where this Frieren gets eaten by a mimic meme came from. Apparently that happens in the show at least once at some point, so I'm kind of interested to see what all that Facebook art is based on. Um, but I've been looking around at some other shows, and one show that I'm actually kind of enjoying, it just started its second season, is Solo Leveling, which I'm rather into, which is interesting because it has exactly the same problem that Frieren does. Um, Solo Leveling is one of those anime where um, guy everyone lives in a world. It's one of those kind of game worlds where people have power rankings and stats, and they're either tanks or healers or DPS, um, and our character is, and they're fighting off. Every once in a while, a portal shows up, and there's monsters inside. So our various heroes, which are called hunters, have to go inside and clear the dungeon of the boss, or all the bad guys spill out and start eating people, right? So um, that's and they deal with stats and all that stuff. So it's basically a live action. Well, it's an animated show, but in the reality of this fiction, the world is basically an RPG game. Um, our protagonist has the ability to increase his rank, and no one seems to be able to do that. If you're a C rank fighter, you can improve your craft, but you'll never move up into B rank. It's just how that works. But our protagonist, for some reason, can level up. So solo leveling. He's the only person who does that, right? So this is a show where he gets more powerful and gets new tools and is constantly fighting new enemies who are ridiculously powerful. And oh gosh, how is he going to overcome this new enemy with these fantastic, seemingly insurmountable powers through sheer wit and gumption? Gosh darn it. And as I said, that's always fun. The problem with the show is the premise is fine. The basic story is basic, but again, fine. Our hero, his mom's in the hospital. She needs money for her treatment. So he's going to solo level as high as he can to take the big jobs to raise enough money to get medicine for his mom. Cool. Right? Fine. The problem is the same problem that Frieren has. This character is emotionless and boring. Like, to the point where he just doesn't seem to care about anything. Just completely flat affect, has no relationship, no real meaningful relationships with other people. Just does his dungeon crawling. I mean, watching the show must be like watching me grind in an RPG, which, I mean, some people do. But the reason the show works for me is because the fights are just so fantastic and fun that, for me at least, it's making up for the fact that the characters, there's almost no actual story. I mean, there's a little bit, but there's not much. The narrative is, it doesn't go much beyond setting and premise, right? But the various adventures that this guy goes through and how he tackles them, I find interesting enough in and of themselves, and presented in enough of a kinetic and flashy and exciting way that it makes up for the fact that the guy is dull as a doorknob, and there's almost no characters. Almost, not completely. I'm being a little reductive here, but most of the characters are just non-existent and don't do anything. It kind of reminds me of a movie I watched last night, which is called what was it called? Last Girl Standing, I think. You remember the end of Texas Chainsaw Massacre? You had the final girl. She escapes Leatherface chasing her with the chainsaw. She's limping away. Oh gosh, she's gonna get away. All of her friends are dead, and she makes it to the road, and she crawls into the back of a truck, and it drives off into the distance while Leatherface impotently swings his chainsaw in anger, and the girl, whatever her name is, I don't remember, it's Susan, is in the back of the truck, traumatized from the events of the last 48 hours. All of her friends are dead. She's bleeding profusely from many different points on her body, and she just laughs as she gets away. She drives off into the distance. Last Girl Standing is a movie about that girl. Not specifically that character, but the final girl of a slasher movie. What becomes of her? What's her life like? How does that event affect her? Affect how she lives her life, affects her relationships, her emotions. And that's a great premise for a movie. And there was a lot to like about how the movie was executed, but overall I don't think it completely worked, for reasons I don't want to spoil, because I think it's such an interesting angle to approach a film from. I think what would have helped the film, among other things, but one issue I had with the film is you never really get to know the character, who she is. She is, from the perspective of the viewer, defined almost entirely by the traumatic slasher movie experience that she had in the inciting incident of the film, which makes it hard to relate. You can empathize with her, certainly, but you can't. It's hard to relate to her because you don't know who she is. And I think that's a bit of a missed opportunity, among other things in that film. I think that could have helped bring me in to get invested in this character if I knew something about her other than she's dealing with some shit, right? And the same thing goes for, to different extents, with Frieren in that anime, and with whatever the lead character's name is in Solo Leveling. All of these shows, there's a lot I like about them, but I think, for me, character is important, right? Like, I can watch, I don't know, like the Olympics or something. I can watch a really nifty gymnastics or figure skating routine or something, right? I don't necessarily need the backstory of the person. I'm just watching a person perform a craft better than nearly anyone else in the world. Don't really need to know that person, not particularly interested in that person. I'm interested in them performing a craft, their artistry in regards to whatever it is they do. Um, but when you're watching a television show or a movie, generally you're watching a story, so the character is important. However, sometimes the character is just doing such cool stuff, like whatever the lead's name is in Solo Leveling, that it's like, I think this would be improved if there were a character here. But I mean, just seeing him flip around and stab things with a knife is just fun. So, um, so it's working. Uh, so I been looking around and trying out some other anime. I saw one that another. Would you believe there's another isekai anime this season? This one's called Headhunted to Another World from Salaryman to Big Four. And the gimmick in this one is usually in the isekai genre, a character is summoned to some fantasy world, usually like a Dungeons and Dragons Middle Earth kind of a setting. Um, they are either summoned there on accident or on purpose, or a god of sorts messed up and accidentally killed or allowed someone to die, and they're like, I am so sorry, you were not supposed to be pancaked by that truck. I can't put you back on Earth, but I can like dump you on this other planet and give you like some cool superpowers to make up for accidentally killing you. Sorry. You know, that's generally how it works. This one, the demon overlord, or whoever he is, summons this salaryman, this office manager, to lead, to be one of his generals of an army, because he needs essentially an office manager, is someone who can broker deals and do negotiations and um, keep an organization hierarchy going. And what's interesting is I can't recall the last isekai where someone was summoned and on purpose, and that specific person was selected. And this is a case where the demon lord is like, hey, I basically headhunted you. Wait, is that the name of the show? Yeah, Headhunted to Another World. I headhunted you. I want you in my demon army. That's why I summoned you specifically. And if you decline my offer, I'll send you back. Usually it's a one-way ticket. They summon the great hero, and some poor school kid schlub ends up there and then has to save the world. But this is guy essentially is like, wow, this guy headhunted me. He's like, yeah, and we've got dental and all kinds of benefits. Like, wow, this is a great job opportunity. And I thought that was a fun angle. Unfortunately, the show just seems to be another harem anime. Would you believe that the other three army generals are, you know, moe anime women with gigantic boobs and very little clothing, and all of them are like have the hots for this guy? Surprise! Yeah. Um. Yeah. Oh, and he makes a negotiation with the orcs on the other side of the river, and hey, the orc chieftain's really hot daughter with the giant boobs is really hot on this guy. Wow, surprise! So now she goes to work with him. Negotiation successful. Um, so probably not continuing with that show. It's an interesting idea, but it's seems to be another excuse for a harem anime, which can be fun, but this one just seems kind of lame to me. Um, Hey Warren, how you doing? Says, forgot today was Saturday. Hope things are well. Things personally are pretty good. Thank you. Yes, hope things are all well for y'all too. Lindy says, gone were the days you almost get run over by a truck and transported into another fantasy world. Yeah. So I tried a show called Doctor Stone, which has the premise of the world gets Medusa'd for without a Medusa. Just for some reason, every is it every living thing or every person? Because I think birds get turned to stone too. I don't know if it's all, or it's not the trees either. I don't know if it's all animals or I forget what it was, but basically the entire human population gets frozen into stone. 3,000 years later, well, his name's not Dr. Stone, but our science-minded high schooler who knows every science fact in the world and his big beefy friend, um, 3,000 years later, they manage to unstone themselves and they work on rebuilding civilization. So essentially, the premise of the show is like, okay, we're starting from scratch. We are going to have to speedrun civilization now, which is a neat premise. And I watched, I think, 3 episodes and just wasn't really into the show. I don't care for the show's art style, didn't really care for the humor, I didn't really care for the personalities of the characters, so that one kind of fell flat for me. Uh, so I watched a different Doctor show called uh, uh, Amaku MD, Doctor Detective, which is one thing I want to say positively about Headhunted to Another World. The main dude in our protagonist, clearly an adult, not a school kid, not a fresh out of high school, but looks like he's 16. But I mean, he's actually 22 or 23. But yeah, he looks like he's 16. No, clearly an adult, someone who's well into his 20s, if not pushing 30. Something you don't see too terribly often in anime, so that was appreciated. Anyway, Amaku MD, Doctor Detective, pretty decent show so far. It's basically blackjack. You have a bit of an antisocial doctor guy it's House MD, the anime, all of these, they're the same. You have this obnoxious antisocial doctor who knows everything and takes on just the weirdest cases. It's like, oh gosh, this guy came in with rigor mortis and missing a leg, and he's bleeding blue blood. What happened? This looks like a job for Doctor whatever her name is. Right? It's that kind of a thing. So it's a mystery show where a doctor has to figure out what the hell is wrong with her patients. And the doctor herself is off-putting, and the show smartly recognizes that and makes sure she is not the protagonist. The protagonist is her coworker. And that's something that a lot of stories get wrong. I didn't care for BoJack Horseman. I think it's a good show. I think it's very smartly written. I watched about 8 episodes and then I had to bow out of it because I can't stand the titular character BoJack Horseman. And you're not supposed to. He's genuinely a horrible person. Which is why he shouldn't be the main character of the show. I thought the show would work. Now, granted, it's like 5, 6, 7 seasons, whatever. I only saw the first 8 episodes. But from what I watched, I thought it would work better if, I forget her name, but the woman who's writing his biography, I think if she were the main character, the audience focused character, I think the show would have worked better, at least for me. And that's why I think that this Doctor show works well, is because the main character is not her. She's kind of obnoxious. I think those obnoxious, off-putting characters can be fun and can work if they're side characters. Like Jack Sparrow. Jack Sparrow works great in the first Pirates of the Caribbean movie because he's not the lead. Uh, Keira Knightley and Orlando Bloom, whatever the characters' names are, Jack and Jill, whatever it is, they're the main characters of the story. You'll notice that as the movies progressed and Jack Sparrow became the lead, the movies got worse and worse for a variety of reasons, but that's among them. So, so in addition to let's see, Oshinoko rather, what the hell else am I watching? The Apothecary something or other Diaries. I need to get back to Eminence in Shadow. That one, I fell off of that one because I was I think I checked it out by doing a free trial of High Dive, and then my trial ran out. But I think it's on another service that I actually have access to, so I think I can continue watching that. What else am I watching? Oh, the final season of The Dragon Prince is out. I'd like to watch that. So yeah, lots of oh, Will and Elizabeth. That's right, Cass. Thank you. That's right. I'm bad at names. So all right, that's it for me this evening. The podcast was streaming in 1080p, so I'm gonna go back and look and see if it looks okay. But hopefully it played well for all of you. If you have any feedback, let me know in the comments or hit me up on the social medias or something. I'm gonna Sunday stream. I'm gonna stream in the same resolution and make sure that my computer and my internet connection can actually handle streaming. I have the bandwidth to stream at this resolution and frame rate, so we'll see. But I wanted to try it. I'm definitely not going to stream in 4K. I know I don't have the bandwidth for that. So when I show off PS5 games later, don't expect them to be in 4K. I mean, all that stuff is in is in little windows anyway. So tomorrow, some more Cold Steel. I spent an hour or two basically respecking all my characters and redoing their loadouts, making sure everyone had attack 3s and action 3s, redoing their quartz and their equipment and stuff like that. So also did a little bit of grinding because Fee and Eustace were way back. I think everyone was averaging like level 53, but Fee and Eustace were like back in level 51. So did some grinding, got some extra U material. I think I have like 80 some U material now, and everyone is like level 54 and 55. Got a couple new crafts to show off. Need to cook something. Yeah, so looking forward to playing some more Cold Steel tomorrow, and hope you're looking forward to it as well. That's it for me tonight. Gonna have some dinner and probably watch movies or play video games or something like that, and hope you have a satisfying evening yourselves. So, that's it for me. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.